Oftentimes, our perception of domestic violence is limited to what the media exploits to the public. We've been programmed to believe every time a mother is abused by an unfit, drunken father in the midst of their child, it's domestic violence. Every time we hear of an estranged lover breaking a restraining order, it's domestic violence. However, as a lifelong witness to domestic violence, I know firsthand that river runs deeper. Anyone with a life in the mix-up of the streets suffers domestic violence daily, submitting themselves to a violent lifestyle in a violent world. Those living reckless with no regard for self-improvement are too victims of domestic violence due to the ignorance blinding their eyes from the truth. They are who I stand for and who I speak up for. They are the ones with the serious urgency of now for us to rescue them from the flames of domestic violence before it's too late. And I pray this poem sheds some light. She stood on the corner of 36 and Main, money in her eyes, and the thought in her mind, they sleep, so I grind. She liked to move early, knowing now the early bird gets the worm. Shame is, she was a good girl, not from the upper class, not from the lower, but far enough in between to have, sometimes need, but always want. Her hustler mentality exceeded her. Her knowledge of the almighty dollar was worthy of Wall Street. But there she stood, on the corner of 36 and Main, money in her eyes, repeating, they sleep, so I grind. Some say it was in her blood. Her grandmother stood on the same block 20 years before. Her mother was fortunate. Different mentality, same mentality, brighter outcome. No one knew her reason. When questioned, she would say, my business is none of yours. Still thinking, they sleep and I grind. She was married to her money. No man could have her love. Or should I say, no man could have her heart. See, she built a wall so high, even she couldn't see over it. All she saw was the money. She never saw the baby from 3 possible men. She never saw the infections. Knowing they were there, she was blind as the greed had taken her. In the beginning, she just wanted a few extra dollars. But after a while, what she wanted became what she needed and couldn't go without. But one day, she remembered her knowledge. I saw her a few years later, the product of change, the perfect example of good sense and education. She knelt down to her daughter's statue and kissed her. While closing her coat, she gave her a smile and said in a renewed mind, remember my love, they sleep, but we grind. Thank you. You know, and I've said before that domestic violence isn't limited to what we've seen. You know, the situations like, many of you may watch Cops, you know, things like that. That's not what it is. That's not really the depth of it. There's more to it than that. And I grew up in a neighborhood where we had to grow up early. You know, we were all long before our time because of the things that we saw. And I've been in this neighborhood all my life and I still live there. And I felt being a poet, being a writer, it was important that I pay homage to my upbringing. No matter what it was like, you know, I had to pay homage. So this is my ode to my home. And it's called That Place. How many of us walk them streets, fully dressed in militancy and camouflage fatigues, fighting the fatigue of that place, our place, home, triple R some call it, the only place where you can wake up to the fresh smell of bullshit mixed with the regretful stench of last night's happenings. What debt do I owe to you, triple R? How many more will you track, pulling them one by one, generation by generation? See, the older ones taught the younger ones, come with us if you want to have some fun, not foreseeing the dangers before us as we escaped each horror with a story to tell. As for me, triple R, you made me. In you I learned to live out there. In you I gained consciousness the day my soul opened up and I met the real me for the first time. And in you were many first times, experimenting with curiosity, bringing us to days now thinking back on our first times. And you we grew fast, and some not at all, giving up the growing pains, holding steadfast to childhood days, afraid of the coming days. At home I sit in my window and notice the landscape really hasn't changed. But Triple R, you changed me, gave me a sense of self and opened my eyes to a truth to be told. Triple R, you made me, made my name come alive. And if I ever depart from you, I carry your lessons with me through all time. Thank you.